Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We got another good one for you. We're going to be talking about the biggest fines in NBA history. There are some pretty huge fines that have happened before, so let's get right into it. First up, Ben Simmons, $20 million. This one's actually really recent as it just happened last year, and as you can imagine, it involves Ben Simmons as he refused to play or practice for the Philadelphia 76ers. After the 2021 Eastern Conference Semifinals loss against the Hawks, it seemed like both Simmons and the Sixers were not on good terms, with his wide-open layup debacle, as well as Rivers saying that he isn't sure if Simmons is a championship point guard. This led to Simmons missing practices the next year, citing back soreness and mental health issues, which seemed to be excuses just not to play. This resulted in them fining Simmons over $20 million imposed by the 76ers for not participating in practices and games. The fines were done once Simmons was traded, but he wanted to recoup some of the money that he lost from the Sixers. He and the Players Association filed a grievance for the money that he was not given. This carried on until August 15th, where Simmons and the Sixers agreed to an undisclosed amount for him to get back some of the money that he thought he was owed. At number 2, Robert Sarver, $10 million. We gotta talk about one of the biggest scumbags in humankind, Robert Sarver. This is the biggest fine directly from the NBA in its history and coughed up a $10 million fine for how he ran the Suns organization behind the scenes. If you don't know, Sarver is up there with Donald Sterling for one of the worst NBA owners of all time, and he got fined heavily for it. Some of the awful actions he participated in was, as a white man, using multiple racial slurs when recounting stories. That on its own is inexcusable, but wait, there's more. He also made a lot of sexist comments and actions towards female employees by making sex-related comments towards them in the workplace, as well as commenting on their physiques as well. He also engaged in inappropriate physical misconduct with some of the male employees. Yikes. And lastly, if the first two things didn't tell you that he was a pig, here's another. He was harsh and demeaning at his employees by screaming and cursing at them for no reason. It's great to see that this man is no longer going to be an NBA owner, and I could argue that he should have been fined more for being the horrible person that he is. At number 3, the Timberwolves, $3.5 million. Thankfully, this incident was not as serious as the last one. The Timberwolves were once fined $3.5 million, along with getting 5 first-round draft picks taken away from them because of a secret salary agreement with player Joe Smith. I'm not sure if that fine was worth over a player like Joe Smith at the time, and in the 1999 lockout, Smith signed a 1-year, $1.75 million deal at the T-Wolves, well below his market value. Everything still seemed fine at the time, and no one suspected a thing. But the T-Wolves and Smith actually had a secret deal. They had an agreement that Smith would sign 3 one-year contracts with the T-Wolves so that he could gain his bird rights, and then pay him over the salary cap after those 3 one-year deals. Apparently, he was going to get paid up to $86 million if this went through. Of course, this was illegal though, and the league eventually caught on to their shenanigans, and the team got fined $3.5 million. Maybe the NBA was just trying to save the Timberwolves from paying out that type of money to Joe Smith and pay them $3.5 million rather than paying him a big chunk of money. And then they paid Joe Smith $34 million over 6 years, and the NBA really bailed them out, only for them to give Joe Smith money still. Makes sense why they were never able to do anything with the big-ticket Kevin Garnett. This just makes me feel worse for them. At number 4, the Knicks and Nuggets, $500,000. Next up, gotta talk about a fine that was dished out to 2 teams because of a brawl that they had in an NBA game. On December 16th, 2006, tempers got the best of the Knicks and the Nuggets as a fight broke loose towards the end of a blowout in favor of the Nuggets. Then suddenly, all hell broke loose when Knicks player Marty Collins hacked J.R. Smith when attempting a breakaway layup. Then there was a little scuffle, and most of the time, nothing comes out of it. But then Nate Robinson took it to a whole nother level as he proceeded to body slam JR into the front row near the baseline. And obviously, this didn't sit well with the Nuggets players. Carmelo Anthony then proceeded to confront Collins and punched him in the face and ran away. Collins and teammate Jared Jeffries tried to get Anthony, but Camby was tripped and Collins was held back by teammates. Fortunately, with a brawl this big, no fans were involved. And afterwards, every single player that was on the court was kicked out of the game, and the Nuggets were given free throws for the original technical foul. 7 players ended up getting suspended, and both teams were fined $500,000. This might seem a little over the top, but the NBA was just 2 years removed from the malice of the palace, and were holding a strict stance on fights during the games. Let's hope that we don't have to see a fight like this in future games. At number 5, Mark Cuban for $600,000. For the following fine, of course, no list would be complete without Mark Cuban. This dude is not afraid to share his opinions on his team, the refs, and that leads to a lot of fines. But this one was his biggest. On February 21st, 2018, Cuban was fined $600,000 by the league for making public comments that were deemed detrimental to the league. The public comments that he made were on Julius Erving's podcast, House Call with Dr. J. And on the podcast, Cuban said, quote unquote, "I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I just had dinner with a bunch of our guys the other night, and here we are, we weren't competing for the playoffs. I was like, look, losing is our best option." Yep, Cuban admitted to tanking, and of course, Adam Silver stepped in and took action by giving him a $600,000 fine. But I don't think that Cuban minds the fine because it ended up getting him the MVP favorite for this NBA season. The Mavs eventually got the number 3 pick in the 2018 draft and ended up selecting Luka Doncic. I'm sure if Cuban had the opportunity to get fined $600,000 for a star player, he'd take that fine every time. At number 6 is Vladimir Ramdanovich at $500,000. This might be the stupidest suspension on the list. The Los Angeles Lakers fined role player Vladimir Ramdanovich $500,000 for lying about how he sustained his injury. During the 2017 All-Star break, Vladimir was on a vacation snowboarding for the first time in Park City, Utah, and he ended up falling and separating his shoulder, which left him out for 2 months. He told the Laker organization originally that he was walking, fell over a patch of ice, and tried to get out of having to pay a fine for doing an activity that his contract did not permit. The truth always comes out though, as the Lakers found out it was actually from a snowboarding incident that he was involved in. He felt lucky although, and did not appeal the suspension because the Lakers could have easily voided his whole 5-year, $30.2 million deal. As he said, quote unquote, "They didn't do it, and I'm really grateful for that." Now Vladimir is most known for getting blasted by Stephen A. Smith, so have yourself a career, Vlad. At number 7 is Joe Dumars' $500,000. Here's another moment where some information got leaked that shouldn't have been. We all wonder where Adrian Wojnarowski gets his sources, but in 2013, we found out who one of those sources were: former Pistons star player and president Joe Dumars. Dumars got caught giving unreleased information to Woj. Dumars was fined a total of $500,000, but I wonder how much insider information he knows about the NBA and who some of the other leakers within the organizations are. At number 8 is Latrell Sprewell, $250,000. Of course, we couldn't have a list of NBA fines without including the menace himself, Latrell Sprewell. Just like Cuban earlier, he's been given so many fines, but we're just going to stick to his heftiest one. Going into training camp in 2002, Latrell Sprewell failed to notify his team, the New York Knicks, that he had a broken hand coming in, and even worse, it was his shooting hand. He received this injury from falling on a yacht. This resulted in the biggest fine imposed by an NBA team on a player at the time, with the amount being $250,000. Sprewell was then sent home and was banished from the team until he was going to be able to make a positive contribution to the team, according to the team president. He was out for about a month, which included the preseason and 7 games, but he later came back to the team. Sprewell was a menace, and this is just another instance of that. Well guys, that's going to do it for today's video, so thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell icon for more content just like this. We'll see you all in the next one.